Hello everyone, Ace here, and today let's talk once again about that one subject that absolutely everyone is tired of hearing about with regards to Warhammer 40k. Specifically the topic of female space marines, or how the Wokehammer crowd constantly attempt to forcefully insert their existence into the lore against the consent of the fandom at large. Now, my own tried and true tactic when dealing with Wokehammer activists trying to push this in the name of diversity, I usually end up pointing out that their demands are actually transphobic, because Space Marines have transitioned into a single-sex species, and are thus technically trans non-binary, and thus, by extension, adding a female sex to the Space Marine species would erase trans non-binary representation. And so, the far leftists who demand this in the name of diversity simply need to sit down, shut up, and accept the male-only Space Marines bigot. However, that won't actually be necessary with today's particular instigator, specifically Alex Evans from Wargamer.com, a journalist who decided to write an article titled, quote, "Only GW can banish Warhammer 40k's gender daemons for good. Female Space Marines don't matter, but an ideological backlash against the idea could drag the Warhammer community into dark places." Now, you may have noticed that this person says right off the bat that they don't actually care about the addition of female Space Marines, which is a full mask-off moment that gets repeated numerous times throughout this entire article. Instead, this journalist makes it very clear, through this very lengthy article, that the purpose of female Space Marines itself is no more than a political pawn to engage in ideological warfare and political subversion against those the journalist disagrees with. Why? Because of course everything is political. And if you are voicing no opinion whatsoever, then you are still holding a political opinion. In fact, you're supporting the status quo. So yes, this journalist just openly admits numerous times that the whole point behind pushing for female Space Marines is not actually representation, and the inclusivity of women into the hobby is just a political tool for this person. Now, of course, this is not exactly a surprise to anyone who has paid even a remote amount of attention over the past few years. In fact, despite claiming to be champions of inclusivity, the far left have instead routinely been the biggest bigots, racists, transphobes, and homophobes you can imagine. Let's not forget it was the far left that decided to argue that black people are all orcs from D&D, or that Jewish people are all Skaven from Warhammer Fantasy, or that Slaanesh is an example of trans representation done right, or that being gay is on the same moral plane as being a literal pedophile. And yes, for those curious, I have collected numerous examples of far leftists arguing exactly these things, with some of the examples even being found in academic literature being produced from the far left as well. So considering that far leftists routinely view these people in the lowest light possible, it's not exactly a surprise that the far left have decided to treat these people less as human and more as tools and resources to be exploited purely for political gain. A fact that far leftists have admittedly tried to repeatedly obfuscate with Motte and Bailey fallacies, but that doesn't exactly work anymore when one of them decides to be so galaxy-brained as to go as full mask-off as this. With this story, I am reminded of the wisdom of Napoleon Bonaparte, who was once quoted as saying, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake." And a mistake on the part of Alex Evans and the Wokehammer community this most certainly is. Now Wokehammer activists can't hide behind Motte and Bailey fallacies anymore and try to gaslight us into believing that they just want diversity. Because thanks to Alex Evans, we now have a fantastic piece of proof showing that the only way that most of these far leftists could ever hope to stop lying through their teeth is if their dentist were to remove them all. To me, this article is ultimately a massive gift, an unintended present to the very people that it rails against, a piece of munition that can be readily utilized against the very activists and ideology that this article supports. The activists and ideology themselves already receiving much, although not all, of the scorn and derision that they so very clearly deserve at this point. With that in mind, I actually have to thank Alex Evans for this article, because again, it is a fantastic donation on his part, even if unintended, to the anti-woke cause. This article is a fantastic resource for anyone who despises the far left and wishes to have yet another source to bludgeon their disgusting ideology with. Which is why I would love to provide an archive link of the article, but unfortunately YouTube has of course declared war on archival links, at least in the description and comments of videos. But with all of that said, this has been Ace. Hope to see you guys again soon. Take care. Ace out.